for all of us, okay? So, who am I? Why I'm here? My background, academically speaking, I have an MBA from IE Business School in Spain. I came to study in 2017, and Spain is a country that makes you fall in love with it. So you would definitely try to stay, and it's part of the reason why I am here. I am also a post-graduation student from Hereford University in Scotland, and my bachelor's degree was in engineering, electrical engineering, back in Brazil. That I come from the most traditional and the oldest engineering school in Brazil. I currently work at KMZero. It's an open innovation hub in the southeast of Spain. We are in Valencia, and I currently work as a portfolio manager. So my personal role in here is split it into three main attributions. The first one is work with the investment portfolio. So all the companies that we're going to be, all the startups we were going to be investing in, I need to rank them. I need to make the whole systematic way of evaluating the startups, calculating the enterprise valuations and all those methods that we currently use to see what investment makes sense and which ones do not. I also have to work on the second platform, that is the acceleration programs, basically all the programs designed for startups that we have in our hub. So it is my responsibility with the background in consulting to help entrepreneurs who come to join us through one of our programs. And third is relationship management, which is basically connecting more hubs into one single platform and having partners like Bridge for Billions to connect more, to create this community as we need. I also work for Schlumberger. It is the world's largest service providing for the oil and gas industry. I did consulting for them for 4 years in Japan. I did optimization engineering for them for almost a year, and almost 4 years, almost 5 years actually, as a field engineer. So I did go to the rigs and to the platforms in the middle of the ocean. So I have plenty of stories to share if you want to feel lonely and remote. So I can share my experiences as a field engineer as well on that perspective. So within Schlumberger, I worked in the United States, in Brazil, in Russia, and in Japan over 10 years. So I did 4 different countries in 10 years. So I have a very complicated background with regards countries. It is difficult to say where home is. I also feel myself as an entrepreneur. I run a business in Brazil remotely. It is basically on the education sector. My school back there works with the development of native Portuguese speakers in English and Spanish as foreign languages. We use a franchising model, so I have very much of the stability to run the business remotely. And then my family helps me with the business. So we converted that into a family business. So if you need my LinkedIn, you're going to have the presentation. So you can click on the link out there and have access to my profile as well if you have any questions later. And I would be with all of you. Okay. So talking about KMZero, how can I connect you guys with our community? So basically we try to have the safe environment so we can develop ideas and we can develop entrepreneurs and startups specifically for the food industry and what we call the side industries. The side industries for the food industries are the sectors that contribute to the whole environment of food. For example, education contributes, the hospitality management industry also contributes to the food industry, and technology also contributes to the food industry. So even though our hub is mostly focused on the food industry itself, we also have these 3 side industries that we also accept projects because we understand they contribute to the food industry as a whole. We offer currently 3 programs for startups. We have the mentoring program, which is called Inspiration. We have the customized acceleration program that is named the Learning Program. And we have the investment program that is called Transformation. So depending on the level of your firm, of your startup, you could apply for any of the programs we currently have. We do not have 100% presence necessary, so you can be in a different city that it's not Valencia, be part of our programs, and even take advantage of the investment programs as well. Okay, so I am not going to be promoting very much the company today, our hub, but if you have any questions about what we do, you have our website on our invitation and you can take a look as well. Our topic today is about investments. So when we talk about fundraising, what should we take into account? So I want first to ask you guys, do you have any experience with fundraising? And now it is your time to chat. So if you need to speak, you can just raise your hand, clicking on the button, or type quickly on the chat group if you have any experiences with regards fundraising. Let me hear from you. Let's make it interactive so it's not that boring. And just type no if you don't have any experience with fundraising. Okay, Alvaro, Raul, Cristina, Hector, thank you for participating. All right, actually has received already 5,000 from the SendPost Accelerator. Jose has not received anything. Excellent. Okay, should I wait for any other answer? Crowdfunding is also an option. We're gonna be talking about that. So Cristina has already received some sort of fundraising or financing. All right. Okay, very good. In the previous startup, yes, not in the current one. First testing marketplace. All right, very interesting topics. We're not going to be talking about testing marketplace today because it really requests some fundraising, but we may touch in some tangents on that matter. Okay, excellent. So let's keep moving forward. Thank you for participating. So when we talk about types of investments, I like to consider that you have either an aspirin or an antibiotics at your hand. So if you want to go very easily to understand what we're talking about, we have internal investment sources and external investment sources. The internal investment sources are first the family and friends. If there's one thing that I learned during my MBA, it is that the 3 Fs, as we used to call it, like friends, family, and fools, it is something that as entrepreneurs, we should definitely abolish this. Do not have anyone in your community to say that fools are investing on you. Fools are believing on you more than anybody else. And it is a concept that we should not move forward with this. Professor Blake Mitchell was one of the most brilliant professors I had in business. And he always told us, he used to tell us since the beginning, do not allow anyone to be considered a fool for working on investment. So I really removed the fools on this whole 3 Fs because this is really something we should not move forward. And if there's something that I can just recommend since the beginning of this presentation is this. We have the 2 Fs, not the 3 Fs anymore when we talk about internal investments. And we have temporary revenue streams. Temporary revenue streams are basically what can you do in your firm to start having some sort of income before you actually can sell your products. For example, I have ACE. I was talking to him just before most of you guys entered, and he was mentioning that some of the things that they are doing with an AI platform is doing this, this, and that. And in the end, he said, and we also do consulting. So in that sense, what I can understand is consulting may not be the core or the final product or the main product, but it's something that quickly you can make a source of income. You can make this a quick source of income. So we call it temporary revenue streams. So if you have any availability on your firm to have temporary revenue streams, it is called an internal type of investment because it is not your core product, but you can also have some money coming from it. And then we talk about the external, which is actually the topic of today. We're going to be focusing not on the internal. I think all of you can really understand the internal part quite naturally, but we're going to be detailing more the external part. The first one is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, you always understand what it is. We have plenty of platforms online today to do crowdfunding. You will have a community that also supports you on that. Bridge for Billions is also one of them. So you remember receiving some emails before of a project that is going on, and then we can make a community and make it happen. It is really interesting. And when we talk about crowdfunding, what is relevant for you guys to remember is that crowdfunding is very effective and you create a community engagement. So it is something that you should always consider as part of your fundraising. Crowdfunding is basically a group of people who, for a similar reason or for similar characteristics or for similar interests. They really believe in what you're doing. And they are the ones that are going to invest little, yes, with a lot of numbers and like a lot of people, yes. But this is not something negative. On the contrary, it is a very, very, very positive way to start the investments on your firm. And then we have loans. Loans are mostly related to banks and formal financial institutions. And in the beginning of your firm, I do not recommend using banks. Why? For the simple fact that usually the interest rates are high and you need to have a collateral to provide to be able to get a loan. Using a collateral in the very early stage of your firm is not a very smart idea. Okay, I don't want you to start losing your house or your cars, like your family car, for an idea that is still at a very premature stage. When you're going to need loans, only when you know that your revenues are able to cover that. And we're going to have a topic about loans. We have the angels and super angels, venture capitals, and public funds. We're going to have a beautiful detail of all of them. And then we also ask ourselves, like, investments, external investments, is it a blessing or a curse? And like any other question in business, the answer is it depends. And it depends why. Because if you get a firm that is going to succeed, if your startup idea is going to succeed, your external funds are going to be super attractive to external sources. So your startup is really seen by external sources as a very attractive investment, which means the majority of your investors are expecting the success of your company to take advantage from it. Is it a negative thing? Usually not, because your success is going to be their success as well. So we need to start understanding that most of our investors are actually expecting our success because they want to grow, yes, but also because they want us to grow. And we're going to understand this because investors initially invest on people and not on ideas. And that is what we're going to start covering. So let's go over the types of investments. So this is basically a timeline of your idea. So you start in ideation, and then you have up to the end of your company, following maturity. And each of these types of investments are available at the stage of your company, which means, are you working on the ideation? Are you finishing the LEAP program? Is it something to start considering venture capital? Definitely not, because a venture capital is not going to be connected to your ideation or validation level. Your venture capital is going to be interested in your scalability plan, not on your validation plan. So we need to understand what are the options for each state of the company, so you don't start shooting over different targets that the answer is going to be an automatic no. Okay, this is something very, very important. And then we call like the 3W rule in fundraising. So we have to ask ourselves 3 questions before you even send an email to anyone about fundraising. So before you apply to any program, before you look for an accelerator that offers funds, before you do any communication with even your MBA professor about fundraising, you need to have very clear answer about these 3 questions. Why do we need funds? When will it be critical for operations? And what kind of fund best suits my company at this moment? So we need to answer these 3 questions very clearly, very honestly, before you can actually start any communication with investment funds. And let's go one by one. The first one is, why do we need funds? Is it because of survival, or it is because of an expansion? Basically, when we're talking about the survival level, we're talking about shorter amounts. It is not a huge amount of money, but we need them quickly. We need to have access to them in a quicker way. Is it something negative? Yes and no. Why? Because eventually you may have a company, for example, that is in need of a patent. Your patent, you know that you have to pay for that. So it is a short amount of money compared to any sort of big investment. And if you don't pay for that patent now, you know that you're going to have to wait longer to submit, and it's going to take longer and longer and longer. And this is going to be a less attractive barrier of entry for your competitors when you're trying to raise better funds in the future. So this is a sort of application where you need a survival fund. You need a short amount of money because this is going to help you to protect your firm, or basically to keep your doors open, which is also something that happens eventually. And when we're talking about expansion, we're talking about the next milestone. It is where your company is going to be in the near future. And when we're talking about near future, it is nothing before 1 year, right? So I don't expect a milestone to start being transformed or to start getting concrete before 1 year. And that is something that you guys need to take into account. Like when you're trying to sell a next milestone, it needs to be at least a year plan of execution before you actually can convert that into a stable condition of the firm. And the amount matters. Why the amount matters? Because I want to know how much you can do with that specific amount of money. Or in a simple equation, how much percentage the company can grow with that specific amount of money. So let's say if I give you 500,000 euros, how much your company is going to grow with the investment of 500,000 euros. So very basic math here. Let's go all together. I'm going to do very easy numbers. So let's suppose that you have a company, a software company that is being evaluated in $1 million. Okay, let's use US dollars. So you have $1 million. That's the value of your company right now. And you are expecting your firm to raise 500,000 right now because you're going to leave the United States and you're going to expand to Europe. So to do that attraction, to create this new market, you're looking for investments of 500,000, which means that the post-money valuation of your company is going to be 1,500,000. It was 1 million before, and then 500 more that you successfully raised. So your company now is valued in 1.5 million. What, as an investor, what is interesting for me? It is interesting for me to see how much of this 1 million in 1 year it is going to be. In 3 years, it is going to be. And then if you can say that after 1.5 million valuation, we're going to start selling in Spain, in France, in the UK, and then we start converting our valuation after a new cash flow, a discounted cash flow, we're going to say that the company is now valuated in 2.5 million. So we have increased 1 million, investing 500. This means that I have an 100% of increase or increment in my valuation based on the amount invested. So I could invest 500 and increased the value in 1 million more after that. So it means that my income was 2 times. So the multiplier is 2 because 1 million more multiplied by 2 is going to be the 2.5 million that I have. So in that sense, is it attractive? Yes, it is attractive in the beginning of the firm. Is it going to be attractive after 5 years? Probably not, because investors are looking for 3.5 to 7 multiplier on a long term, okay? So when you are going to look for an investment as an investor, I want to see if in 7 years I can multiply my investment for 3.5 to 7 and not only to 2. But in the beginning, after 1 year, after 2 years, this is attractive. Because what is very important here, and we're going to talk about it, it's about time. When will it be critical for operations? It is always time related. The problem for the firm is time related, but for the investor, the decision point is also time related. So this is something very relevant in the whole investment idea, which is for the investor, it is a long-term investment. And for the startup, it is an urgent need. So we are actually trying to connect 2 different worlds to live and coexist together. But it's difficult because one is trying to have a long-term perspective and the other is trying to have a short-term perspective. So that's why when you're talking to an investor, you need to make sure that your message is focused on his way of thinking and not yours. Even though you want a short-term solution with investment, you need to convey the message to your investor that it is a long-term safe investment. And then it is only going to be effective. You can only make it happen to them if your plan is flawless. If whatever you show them as an option of investment confirms that it is well planned. If you don't have that, it is going to be very difficult to convince them this isn't a safe investment. And we understand it is always about risk, but understand as well that for an investor, we need to measure our risk, because the only way that we can actually make the risks better or less strong in our portfolio is when we invest in different companies. So for example, here in our hub, I look for investments in technology, I look for investments in education, I look for technologies, I look for investments in FMCG products for supermarkets, I look for entertainment products or different companies in entertainment. So the way all of these companies, they have different levels of risks. And then the way that I diversify the amount of industries that I correlate with or that I invest in, it is a way that I can try to minimize the overall risk of the fund. So that's pretty much how all the investors are going to look at your perspective. Is it going to increase the risk of my whole portfolio, or this is going to actually minimize the risk of the whole portfolio? Every time they think that your idea is minimizing the risk of the entire portfolio, you have better chances of succeeding with your fundraising with bigger investors, okay? And one tip, do not look for funds if you're trying to pay for older debts. Remember that eventually we may need bank loans or whatever, but if that's the case and you're trying to raise funds because you want to pay those debts, this is not going to work. You're not going to succeed with your firm. You don't try to get money to pay money that is already lent from someone else. This is not how we make business. You need to make it profitable. And for you to make it profitable, you start paying debts, but not getting debts from somebody else, like making debts with anybody else to convert debts that you had already with a former source. So don't do that. It is really not going to end up well. So let's go to see what kind of funds are available in the market. So the first ones are angels and super angels. The difference between them is just basically on the size of the ticket. We call ticket size, the amount of money they lend. So if they offer you about up to $200,000, they're considered angels. If they go above that, they're considered super angels. But the way they do business is very, very similar. What you need to take into account when dealing with angels? Angels are people, more than they are a group or more than they are a company like VCs. They are people, and they are 100% personal fit. Their decision is 99% emotional. It is how much you show them that you had everything it took to be where you are. It is how much you show them that you have common grounds to make them believe in your idea and in the bright future you're trying to plant with her or him. It is really important for you to keep that idea in mind. For example, I am glad to see that we have women here, because usually women are not considered to be the future of business, which is something absurd. And women, there is a lot of you girls out there as angels. So before you try to go to a man as an angel, go to all the other women. They are willing to help you much more than any other man. And it is simply because they were before on your shoes and they know how difficult it was for you as a woman to build your leadership status. So find those women who actually have common ground with you. And it is going to be much, much easier. And for example, if you have an angel that comes from your university, the guy suffered just like you to have the same engineering degree. So he knows somehow what you needed to go through to get to where you are. So these common ground is really making the difference in the angels and super angels environment. When we talk about venture capitals, things are kind of similar in the perspective of this personal evaluation of the whole process. The tickets are higher, so majority of the venture capitals are going to start issuing tickets above $500,000. And they really want to see the perspective of growth, but how all the team members complete each other. That is really the main focus of venture capitals these days. So we're going to talk about the size of the groups, but one of the important things is your team needs to be aligned to the final goal. And when I mean aligned, it is. You need a COO who really understands about operations. You need a CFO that really understands about finance. You need a COO that really understands about big pictures of a business. And a CEO that has problems to communicate and to speak in public, it is something that you need to fix today. If you are a CEO and you don't know how to speak in public, we have a problem. Why? Because investors want to speak to the CEOs. They do not want to speak to your lawyers. They do not feel 100% confident to talk to your consultants. They don't want to talk to your mentors like us. They don't want to talk to Bridge for Billions recommendations. They want to talk to you. They want to see what you are going to do, what you are taking control of, and what expectations you have for your firm. So if you're trying to third party that service to someone else, the chances of a successful fundraising is really minimal. And we also have the company's venture capitals. They are not venture capitals, they are the company ventures, such as Unilever, that currently in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, they had Unilever Foundry, which are fund options available through main companies. In Spain, we have MAO, that is also doing some similar job. Our Open Innovation Hub here also do something similar. So we're also evaluating the same thing. What is the possibility of growth of this firm or this idea, and how the team connects them together and are going to succeed and not fall apart, okay? And then we have another source, which is called the public funds. Public funds they vary a lot. They can be at a municipality level, they can be at a state level, they can be at a country level, and then can be at a European Union level, for example. And that difference is going to make the tickets to vary a lot. You can vary tickets from $10,000 or even less than that, up to $3 million if you go to the Horizon 2020 here in Europe. It is very geographically dependent. So do not expect that the options in Spain are going to be exactly the same options as in Switzerland or in India or in China or in the United States. They are not. They are very local. And if you're going to do something in Africa, you should look for the CDC group if you're trying to work on sustainability products, because they give a lot of funds to Asia and to Africa. You can have LATCA resources available on that link that I'm sharing if you're in Latin America. They are very segmented because Latin America has very complicated tax rules. So each country needs to fund your own ways. So you can have a chance to look at these resources and see what options are available at your country in Latin America. So it is very, very geographically dependent. So when we talk about all of these things, very quickly now, let's go one by one. I'm just looking at the time here. Okay, so when we're talking to angels and super angels, as I said, find the common ground. The numbers need to be realistic. And it is a personal approach. Look for that person on LinkedIn. See how you can connect to her or to him. And contacts to introduce you. Do not try to knock the door directly. The chances of success in that case are also marginal. They are not very high. And this is going to be applied to every single investor you have except public funds. So if you're going to work with venture capitals, angels, super angels, corporate funds, and corporate ventures, really look for someone to introduce you to them. It is going to be almost impossible for you to get there, knock their door, and get some answer. Venture capitals, as I told you, they are oriented on the growth part of the business. So they see what the enterprise value is. They are going to calculate their enterprise value. They're going to check with your enterprise value. That is one of the questions that people ask me. So what is the company valuation? Is it my company valuation or the VC company valuation? In the ideal scenario, you have the same valuation, right? And if you have a lower valuation than they do, then they're going to follow your valuation. If they have a lower valuation than you do as an entrepreneur, then it's your responsibility to convince them you were right. Okay? Usually you lose this battle, but still it is worth trying. Okay? One of the very important things about venture capitals is that they are very industry specific. They are stage specific. They are geography sensitive. So don't try, just because one of your friends is able to help you with a venture capital in California that is working for software in the United States, and you have a startup that is in Patagonia and south of Argentina, and you're trying to make it happen with a Californian venture capital. It will probably not work. There's some US venture capitals that already have investments all over the world, but some of them are very geographically limited. So don't try to go into those and expect some positive results, because in the end, it will not be. And if you are working with food, look for Unilever, look for Kilometro Zero, look for whatever company that is interested in food, venture that is interested in food. If you're working with technology, then you have, of course, more options. If you're working with sustainable achievements or sustainable products, then you need to go for the VCs that are working with sustainability. They are very industry sensitive. So don't just open the doors and try to get all of them into one room and expect some positive outcomes, because this is really not going to happen. And again, if you don't have anyone to knock their door first, you will not succeed. They are very busy all the time. They have plenty of different options every single day. So they're going to try to see the ones that already someone backs up. Basically, who is already supporting this firm? And then I am going to give a chance if I trust the person that is supporting this firm somehow. Even if it is just a simple introduction. The person who introduces you does not necessarily need to be an investor or an angel or a mentor. Maybe it's someone you know, but who trusts you enough to send a recommendation to the venture capital. So try to get that. And again, I know it is very basic. You have the quote from the Techstars co-founder. Transparency at this level is key. So I understand the numbers are not going to be beautiful. We all know if you show me a financial statement with very beautiful blue numbers all over from year 2, this is probably going to be not realistic. So don't try to make up beautiful numbers because you think this is the way we're going to look at it. If you try to make just everything so beautiful, we're not going to believe this is a startup. We're going to believe this is something else. And if we are industry specific and we want startups, then if you have something else, I am not going to invest. I know it is something weird to say, but this is the truth. We respect more the red numbers when they make sense, and then when we see growth, then actually the blue numbers, just because we see that they were trying to make it more attractive to our eyes. And there's plenty of funds publicly. As I said, they are very geographically dependent, very exclusive to some geographic locations. Those are the ones in Spain that I could list, and then you have more information. And what is important for you to know is that the public funds at any location you are, they have much better discount rates. All the interests are better. They don't have equity involved, so you don't start losing the shares of your company. They have a lot of opportunities with non-payable grants. And when we talk about non-payable grants, what does it mean? Does it mean that you take the money and you don't pay? No, you pay. The thing is that if you go bankrupt and the company does not succeed, you don't have that as a debt. So whatever is left as a debt after you go bankrupt, it means that you're not going to take that along with you, and then you don't have to clear any debts in the future if you get a job or whatever. That is the only difference. But if your company is succeeding and you have cash flows, you have a time window that you're not going to pay. But then after you start paying, and if you have cash flow, you're going to have to pay. One very important information about this is that public funds are considered nowadays an extra. They cannot be considered a survival resource because they take long. There's a lot of bureaucracy in most of the public funds options. And if you try to consider them as the option for your current survival mode, then it is really not going to happen. So if you have any needs in Spain, one of our partners here is Ivan Garcia. He works with Financia Connect, and he's going to be super happy to get in touch with you all and help with the public funds in Spain if you need that. Okay, very much of a friend, trust him very much, and will highly recommend. So as a consultant, of course, I have to go to a 2x2 matrix at some point. So remember that we had 3 whys. So when, why, and then what kind. So the what kind are all the things that you can see on the screen spread out. So why? It is about expansion, or is it about survival? Is it urgent, or we can wait? So you can see all the options available, all the angels, all the crowdfunding. Some crowdfunding can be very, very quick to raise, depending on the amount of money you want. Some of them do not. And there is one successful case that I can share with you guys that is called Mr. B&B. Have you ever heard about Mr. B&B? I think not, but I would ask. Mr. B&B is like an Airbnb, but for the LGBT community. So what they did was to start promoting within the community that it would be a safe place that you would always have while you're traveling, because you understand about all the conflicts with the LGBT community. So the LGBT community felt so safe using this option of an Airbnb exclusively for the LGBT community, that you could feel safe and you would not suffer any prejudice or anything like that, that they started raising funds of $500,000 on a crowdfunding source. And less than a month, they not only raised 500,000, they raised 580,000, so they could go 80,000 more on the crowdfund target, and only by members of the community with a minimum share of $500. So the community, again, remember, I was telling about the community, how you need to find the same grounds and how people need to be connected to your product. This is the only way you can actually succeed in a crowdfunding as well. So get connected to the people who would feel the same pain and would believe this is the right choice to go. And then they would, because they believe in you and they believe in the potential. And that sometimes, like in this application, they need your service. So this is a very successful case that was very surprising. And it happened just like months ago, like maybe a month and a half ago. So when it is time to decide which one of these options you're going to select, eventually you're going to need documents. And the first document you need is a pitch deck, is your tool to elevate your message. So the first thing you need to know is that this is not going to be a standalone document, and this is not a copy-paste document. If you're going to talk to KMZero, and then we have food innovation, we do entertaining, education, and technology. So you know that we have these 4 areas. But you think that you can bring some value to the firm, to the hub, through, I don't know, like an app for, I don't know, let's use this example, like the Mr. B&B app. So if this is going to be here, you're going to come to tell me that besides everything that you have in your company, you understand that the LGBT community pays more in restaurants than the average of regular straight people in the same age range. I'm just making up a story. So the thing is, I would look at that information as a source of information that would be relevant for my business as a whole. So even though it is not directly what I would invest in, it brings me an extra value that I would not know before. So in that sense, your tailored communication is key. You need to find what is relevant for that person. You need to read their blogs. You need to follow them on Instagram. You need to follow, it is really like hunting. You need to follow them on LinkedIn. See what kind of news they share, what is relevant and important for them, so you convey that your product is really reaching the target at something that really matters to that specific investor. On your pitch deck, focus on your team. Do not try to be giving magical numbers considering this is the solution. No, your team are the most important, your team is the most important asset you have in your company right now. If you are at a startup level, we want to see brightness in your people more than in your product. And of course, show the growth potential. The financial statements, they make sense. Yes. Do we have to present them? Yes. But if you are showing us your financial statements, show me how you manage your expenses more than how you manage your revenues. Why is that? Because your revenues are just a dream. You must believe me and trust me and agree with me that everything that you put in your balance sheet as a revenue, it is because you expect that to happen, but you have no control of it, or very minimum control of it. But your expenses, you have control. If you don't have control of how you're going to spend the money of your firm every single month, I am not going to trust anything in your hands, any single coin, right? And how you show that to us? Instead of moving forward with a 5-year EBITDA, you don't do that. Show me how you're managing your expenses, for example, with your expectations of the customer acquisition cost, the CAC on this slide. So you say that your customer acquisition cost during your MVP was $100, and then you started implementing this strategic tool using social media, and then you could bring it down to $89. And then after 6 months with the product in a different channel, a distribution channel, you could drop down your customer acquisition cost to $69. So if you show me this change in your customer acquisition cost, it means that you know how to manage your resources much better than 99% of the other entrepreneurs out there. And then I believe I can give you money. Not because I know you can make money, but I know you're going to be responsible while spending that money. And that is something that we value. Okay? So don't try to focus on anything beautiful in your numbers with regards long future, mainly because the long future does not exist. And then focus on the expenses and how you can really manage your expenses and control them in the end. And honestly, on your financial statements, when you put them, do not go beyond 3 years. You cannot predict anything beyond 3 years, right? So people send us eventually I receive a pitch deck with a 10-year EBITDA. And I look at them and I'm like, I'm not even going to look at that slide. Because it is so absurd that it's so insane that an entrepreneur is able to predict a 10-year revenue that I really don't look at it, because it is just impossible, okay? So how to write a pitch deck? What do you have to put in there? You have 4 categories: company, team, market, and finance. It is the minimum that you have to do. You don't have to go much further than this, to be very honest. And when I put in each one of the boxes what you have to write, I know that some of them are looking very stupid. For example, Leandro, do I need to put the name of the company? Yes. But why you're saying that? Of course I have the name of the company. Yes, but people forget. So if you're sending me a pitch deck, or if I need to have on the bottom, like in my slide right now, you can have my logo, like KMZero logo on one side, you have Rage for Billions logo on the other side, and then you have my name on the center of the slide. So if you're going to do that and you do not have a logo yet that you can put there with the name of your company, because as you can see, the logo of KMZero does not have the name, right? Sorry, this one has. I was just saying, like, if I did not have the logo, then I would put the name. But make sure that the name is visible all the time. I cannot forget what the company you're talking about, like you represent, is. I really can't. And remember, I may be listening to 4 or 5 different startups in one single day. So if I don't keep that message all the time, and it is going to be really difficult for me to make sure that you are relevant in my whole portfolio. I'm just concentrated on the sector. What is the sector you're going to be doing? Like, we are this startup. We do this, this, and this with your value proposition that you're going to do. You're going to be constructing during the leap. And then the pains and gains, the pains and needs, your value proposition, which sector, very straightforward. Don't try to go very long with it because it really does not make sense. It is a very direct message. And then show me your teams. Put the nice photos. We like to see photos. We like to make slides colorful. I want to have your academic achievements. So if you were the champion of the basketball team, you may think it is not relevant, but I know how much you're going to have to work harder at late hours. And if you were the basketball champion and the captain of your basketball team, that matters to me. What are the lessons learned that each one of you has already learned throughout this journey? So put a quote for each one of you. Make it personal, make it attractive, make it human. People forget that we're looking for humans, and human beings are quite relevant at this moment. And put a hobby, like I like chess, and don't try to be nerdy all the time. Like, as you saw in my bio, I put that I like to cook and I love wine. It is true, and this is not going to change. And if anyone is hiring me or literally giving me a chance to work with them, it is going to be because either they love wine or they don't care that I love wine. So this is something very personal in the end. When we're talking about market, we're going to talk about the customer segments, the market size, barriers to entry, competitors. What is the innovation factor of your product? It is probably the longest part of your presentation, because this is really what is true. This is really what you have in hand together with your team. So items 2 and 3 are basically more than 60% of your whole pitch deck. And then you have finances. As I said, show me how you manage your expenses. Show me how you have a prediction for the first 3 years, no longer than 3 years. Do not focus very much on the revenues. Explain to me what are the distribution channels for that revenue to take place, more than actually the numbers. If you try to say like, we're gonna sell $100 million, I'm going to say that this is just impossible for a startup and I won't read anything else. So be realistic. For you to have all the details, because I don't want to be speaking forever, you can look at this the link below, and then you have more details about each of the sections that I recommend on this pitch deck. And a very good tip is look for online for Cabify, Uber, all the big firms that you currently have today, Airbnb. Look for the big names on the tech firms, for example, in the tech sector, and look for their pitch decks. And you're going to find them online. You're going to see a lot of them in PDF or in pictures, and then you can really download them and see how they were successful conveying their message. And then you can use that as a reference. Don't be afraid of using references, because in the end, remember that people are going to present you to, like a group of people is going to present to you or introduce you to the others. So they basically have the same message, right? It is very equal, like all of us. We follow standards. So spend time on your deck. The deck size, when we're talking about presentations, we are talking about how many of you have seen venture capitals and angels and super angels coming from consulting and banking backgrounds. A lot of them, a lot of them. So try to make a presentation that is really going to be like if it were for a banking and a consultant background person to understand. So it is going to be way easier for you to get a message that even connects to them, because they're going to say like, oh, that slide looks like the slides I used to prepare for BCG. And then I really understand what this guy's talking about. And it gives me already a sense of trust. I already see like, oh, he's not going to bullshit me from now on. So it gives the idea. Ideally, you're going to have in between 10 to 20 slides. Don't try to go to a pitch deck for more than 20 slides. This is really going to be painful. You're going to be rushing like I am today, trying to convey all the message within 1 hour. And this is really not nice. The communication strategy. So how you're going to do? You're going to send or create a one-page document. This one-page document is just a basic set of information for about your company, what do you expect, and then how people can really be caught the attention with that document. It is just your first shot, and it's probably the one you're going to send to your professor, and he's going to forward that as a message like, hey, you're a VC, look at this person, I like them in my class. And then they're going to look at that one-page slide or one-page document and come back to you. Remember, it is one page to call the attention, so don't try to write a lot of things in there. It is really just to call the attention. And then you're going to have the deck version to be presented, the 10 to 20 slides. We just made the description on the slides before. And then you're going to create an executive summary. After you present the deck to the person, the 10 to 20 slides, you're going to send them an executive summary later. This document is going to summarize everything you currently have. It is not going to be your 40, 50-page business plan. It is going to be a maximum of 3 pages that you're going to send later with the most relevant points for all the 4 topics that we discussed on the pitch deck. So make sure that you have more details or the relevant information, or even better, that you and your partner were together in the presentation. One is presenting, the other is writing the questions. Write the questions in a piece of paper, bring those questions home, and when you create your executive summary, you put the information of those questions already in those topics, because they are going to understand that in the end, it was a very personalized document, and it brings a lot of value to your pitch deck. And now you can breathe and start asking the questions. If you want to speak up, that's okay for me.
Thank you so much, Leandro. I think everyone is muted, so if you want to make a question or to share an experience that you had before, or something that you're just thinking, how should I do this now that you're listening to Leandro, you have to unmute yourself first, okay? It always takes the first. Yes.
Hi, Leandro.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello,
can you hear me?
Raul.
Hi, just one question, because you said in regarding the investors that they will like to have from 3 to 5 times what they have invested in 7 years. Okay, this is different from what I heard in the past, which was that the investor usually want to have 30% of the invested amount per year. So at the end, it will be less than the amount that you say. So I'm not sure right now if for example, they give you 100 Ks, if they want to have 130 Ks in the second year, 100 and whatever, I can't remember and the second year and so on. Or at the end, I want to have, okay, I'll give you 100 Ks, and in 5 years, I would like to have 300 or 400 Ks back.
Right. So what happens is that, remember, we were talking about a portfolio and we were talking about risks. So one company is going to be evaluated in 7 times what I invested, but the other is going to go bankrupt. So in the end, they are always trying to get a 3 to 7 return. So as a portfolio as a whole, considering the losses, you can still get the 30%. So it's really like about the range of the portfolio as a whole, and not the exclusively perspective of one single investment. Okay, so they go for the expectation of a 3 to 5, a 3 to 7 for one single investment, but probably the whole group is going to make 30% after all the investment is gotten back, because one of the companies are just not going to grow, or the others are not going to grow into the same level, and the others are going to just lose the money from the entire fund. So on average, of course, the growth, it's basically like if I raise a 10 million fund, I cannot expect to have a 70 million in 7 years. That is really not how it works. It is based on the decision point of the expectation of the company. So if I see that this company can have a 5 to 7 growth in EBITDA, then I am going to consider that a good source of investment. But it's not that I expect that to be returned to the cash flow in 7 years. Is it clear?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question that usually we are asked about. If I'm an entrepreneur that has no awareness of the investment sector, etc., I'm just trying, but I realize that to be able to dedicate some time to my venture, I need to raise investment. I don't have any references. So locally, to have some references of who should I start approaching locally, etc. How can I have access to this information?
All right. That's a very important question. The first thing you have to do is to make sure you are connected to a community, and this community is going to put you in contact with the relevant people in the sector. Okay? Bridge for Billions is a community, yes. So you need to be involved in all the events you can be. Which city are you now?
Well, I'm in Madrid, but imagine if I was in Bilbao or in another country that we are not familiar with, like let me see, for example, if I was in Nairobi. I don't know which are the entities or the main agencies that I can contact first with to have a first overview of the sector.
Right. So we're talking about 2 different things then. First, it is about the resources, where they are located, and second, how we reach them. Again, so where the sources are located, it is very geographically dependent. So you need to make sure that your community out there, there's also a lot of people who has been on this path before, and they will be glad to share. If there's one thing that we have been amazing at, is to build a community of entrepreneurs that really share everything that they had done well, and even better, what they have done worse. So make sure that you are connected through network events, through LinkedIn, every single resource you have to find the community in your geographic location, because it is very geographically dependent. Second, how do I reach these people? Probably other entrepreneurs, if you don't come from a finance background or any technology background related matter that will be able to introduce you to other firms, to other investors, it is really important that other entrepreneurs who succeeded in the first rounds or in the first contacts understand what the sectors those investors are interested, and then recommend you. So this is really an important topic, as you may remember, that all the VCs and angels, they are mostly connected to their backgrounds. So what industries they are connected with, or what industries they can bring some value to the table if they become a board member, for example. So in that case, try to find out which companies in a similar sector were invested by them, or at least have some sort of connection with them, and they will be able to put you in contact with. And then those people are going to be the ones sending the one-page document to call you their attention, and then they're going to call you, invite you for a call.
Excellent, thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions from Akshay, Alvaro, Christina. I'm just reading the names of the participants right now. Jose, I don't know if you have any other questions, something that you would like to ask to Leandro?
I know I speak a lot, so you might all be tired.
Maybe there isn't.
I can have another quick one, if you don't mind.
Sure. No, absolutely not.
Regarding the break even, investor, how much time do they usually want to have you to be, on the other side, to be profitable? After 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it depends on the business, of course. For example, us for my startup, we are a B2B company, so it's a long-term race. But at the end, we are not sure if 2 years, 3 years, because 1 year is it's not possible for sure. But in your opinion, what will be the good timing for that, for the break even?
So the good timing for a startup to go to break even depends on the nature of your job, right? There's not a specific number that I can say to you that this break even is going to be attractive or not attractive. What is important for me to understand is where this break even could change. By that I mean, you know that the calculation of your break even is going to be based on your total fixed cost divided by your sales price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. This is the equation for your break-even point. So in units. So what happens is that if your break-even is going to be affected on the denominator by your selling price and your variable cost per unit, what I need to understand is where I can either raise prices in this whole path and where I can reduce variable cost. And that is something you have to show to your investor. Basically what I'm saying is you have your standard number, let's say it is 3.5 years. But when you show that to them, say that if I get investments here, I am going to improve my technology here because I'm going to buy a new machine. And this new machine is going to change my variable cost into this, converting my break even from 3.5 years to 2.8. If you show that to me, I apologize for the word, I am going to have an orgasm. Because I'll be like, how amazing it is that you have control of your expenses in such level that you can prove me what the investment is going to bring to your company as a whole, right? So consider that. There's no beautiful number. There's not an exact number that's saying like 2 years makes sense, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years makes sense. Of course, the shorter, the better. But in the end, show me how the investment is going to change that. I guess this is more relevant than just saying that 3 years is not adequate or not accurate compared to 2 years. Does that answer to your question, Raul?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't have time enough to get the formula that you just said. It was completely new for me.
Right. So the formula for break-even is on the denominator, on the upper part of the equation is the total fixed cost. And then you divide that by your selling price per unit minus your variable cost per unit. Okay? So in a clear example, it is, for example, for me to open my company today, to open the doors, I have $100,000. That's the price that's the amount of money I need to open the doors. So that's my fixed cost. I cannot run away from it. I currently have a software that I charge $100 per subscription. And then it costs me $20 when I pay my developers to do that. So I'm talking about 100,000 divided by 100 minus 20, which is 80. And that is going to give me probably 1,000 by 8, 1.25 units, 1,250 units. So in that sense, I can convert that number or I cannot convert that number based on what changes I make in my assumptions for the business as a whole. Okay, so we can discuss the equation later if you have any questions, but then this is basically the idea.
Cool, thank you.
Okay.
We have some people, we have Christina and Akshay also saying that they will probably contact you later, so.
Okay. With investment perspective, could you please suggest a sustainable business model? Akshay, what do you mean by a sustainable business model?
Well, when I worked for Consys, Consys is a Norwegian company. It's a web design company. I worked there for a year. They're extremely selective. They're just like top 0.2% of applicants. And they have around 200 designers working there. And they never pay anybody as a full-time employee. They didn't have any monthly cost in terms of hiring people. They only paid for projects we worked on. So I copied the same model for my AI business. I have almost zero monthly startup running costs. I pay my talent only when they work on projects. I have commission-based sales agents, and I created a website on my own. So and Samples is taking care of marketing. So I don't have any business running cost, which I lose every month or something like that. So I'm pretty sure that investors look at the sustainability of the startup before funding this startup. They try to check whether the business will be able to survive for long, even when it struggles or not. So what kind of business models do investors normally look at before investing in a business in terms of losing money and gaining money during business?
Right. That's a very good question. So if I understood well, the basic answer for you is the sustainable business model is the business that you can sell. If you don't have a chance to sell, I don't have anything else. Because the only definition of a business is selling. So if you have any person in your firm that you need to spend money on, the highest salary need to be on your chief commercial officer. That person who is going to be doing sales and business development, that person is really the heart of your firm. You are the CEO, you can do an amazing, incredible job, but the person who is going to bring your company to the next level is your commercial officer. So it's really important for you to understand that the sustainable business model is the closest to the least affected by sales. So this is what we like to see. So the ones that the sales plan is the most stable sales model, it is for me closer to the most sustainable business model. Okay, the less sensitive with sales, and basically you can look at example of any monopoly. What is the advantage of a monopoly? The advantage of a monopoly is not to have any conflicts with sales. It is not because you can control price. Controlling price of a monopoly, it is basically a side effect of not having affected sales, right? And when you have this idea of a stable sales, what you do, you minimize costs. And how you minimize costs? You minimize fixed costs, and then you increase your variable costs. Thank you so much. I have the best coworkers in the globe. Thank you. They brought me water. Look at this. So yeah, so try to make the most sustainable business plan for me is the one that you have the least affected sales plan, the less sensitive sales plan, with the highest variable cost and the lower fixed cost. This is the most beautiful business plan you can ever come to me.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, so for us to finish, how much money should I raise? It is also a question that I receive. It is basically like the earlier you are, the lower you want to get. So if you're in early stage, the bare minimum. If you are close to IPO and you're going to sell your company, just take as much as you can. Because in the end, the outcome of an investment in a later stage is talking about the enterprise value post money. And then the post money is going to make your shares to be more valuable. So it is that simple. The earlier you are, the lower investment you take. The higher you are close to IPO, the more investment you take. And this is a rule that Brad Feld from Techstars, he teaches on his course for investment funds that I will recommend to all of you to take as well. So should I consider bootstrap or go straight for funding? Bootstrap for as long as you can. Try to find whatever resources you have within your company or out of your company, but it's still in the internal circle before you actually go for funding. And do it for as long as you can. Can I raise money as a solo founder? Yes, but it will be very difficult. Remember that we were talking about investors looking at a team, and they expect that a team is going to be ideally in between 2 to 3 people, because one needs to cover for the other. I am not expecting that you're going to work for 7 years until my investment is done without taking vacations. And what if anything happens during that time? I need the company to run. What if you want to get married? What if you want to have kids within those 7 years? Are you prohibited? No, and your company needs to run. So consider this as a solo founder if you're looking for investments. If you have enough money to raise your company, then you're good to go. Can I raise funds while managing operations? I doubt. And I've seen that here with my entrepreneurs in the hub, which are trying to raise their first round, investment rounds. And for them to manage operations and to manage fundraising, it is really not easy. You need to be focused on your meetings with your lawyers. You must be focused with the meetings with your accountants. You need to be focused with the connection meetings and network meetings with your with the other hubs in town, with the other startups. You need to be contacting all the co-founders, and you need to be in contact with them so they can introduce you to other people. You need to find the venture capitalists when they get to some point that they're going to answer to your calls. So it is really it's not a side job. It becomes the main job. Raising fund is the main job when you get to that level, mainly if you're going to do something above 200K, about 200K, in my opinion. And then, should I ask a VC to sign an NDA? That is also a very funny question. A non-disclosure agreement. They will never sign. Don't even try. They really just don't. So if you come to them saying like, oh, before I can show you my venture, my pitch deck, I need you to sign an NDA. Like, just give up. This is not going to happen. Do I know from a VC means no forever? Usually, yes, unless you twist, because remember, they are industry, sector, geographically dependent. So if they say no, it's because they don't feel attracted. And look for someone who does. Don't stay there forever trying to convert, and substantial changes may change their mind. For example, if Sequoia venture capitals and private equity from the US is going to invest in your company, then probably anybody else who said no is going to say yes, because they have the most successful records in the industry. So unless something that substantial changed in the whole idea, I don't recommend to try to push the same VC forever. Best funding options on a seed round. So we have, just to remind you all, we have pre-seed investment rounds, we have seed investment rounds, and series A, B, C, and IPO. Let's put it this way, as simple. So the best funds in the beginning would be the convertible notes. So you have a debt with an institution or a group of angels or a group of investors, or you have the light preference option, in which they all accept to invest, they all are going to convert their shares, but they are not going to have preferred shares. Okay, so they accept to have light shares instead of preferred shares. So if you go on an IPO, the returns are not going to go directly from them. They go first to your VCs and then after to your angels. So consider that if you're going to a very big tech company, but if you're not, then don't bother with this. And if you're talking about how many VCs should I go for a seed round, which is about 300K, 1, 2 maximum. Don't try to put a lot of VCs in the beginning, because it is going to make your life way more difficult to manage them. And VCs take long to raise the fund. It is a 10 million fund does not wake up like this. A 100 million fund does not wake up like this. So it takes time for them to raise the fund. It will take time for them to decide, as much as it takes time for you to reach them. So consider timing a very, very important topic in this whole process. It is really time dependent. And then finally, we're done. I have here more resources for you guys to read. There's a lot of documents that you could read. I'm glad to share all of them with you as well. All of them are linked, so you can spend probably like 24 hours nonstop reading and digesting all these documents only in this slide, which is giving you a hard homework to do. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very happy I could stay with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Leandro. This was making a topic that it's usually so overwhelming and confusing or challenging, so simple and so approachable. I think it was really empowering. Thank you so much, really. It's very interesting. Like in the end, it's always about connecting to people and in a person-wise, no? If people will invest in you, if you're not able to be truth and to be as you are and with everything in a meeting or with your pitch deck, they will not invest in you. So that's the part that you should prepare as well. I'm going to share the recording in the community. You have Leandro's contacts as well. He's in the community as well. So if you have any other resources or experiences you would like to share, feel free to share them as well in the event, and we can take this discussion to there. And thank you so much for attending. Keep updated with the new webinars and new events that we're going to launch. And Leandro, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the community.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and please, I love to receive feedback. So whatever you want to comment on the presentation, how the slides were done, how the communication was done. I know it was a lot of information for just an hour, so I know it was pretty quick, but please remind me of that so I can try to make it shorter the next time.
Thank you
once again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was great. Bye-bye.